If you're like me and you love Sherpa, I think you're going to love this blanket. Go for Fleece yarn is new from Lion brand, and I couldn't help but give it a try. It does have low stitch definition, as you'd imagine, for a fuzzy yarn, but I personally think knitting with fuzzy yarn like this is much easier than crocheting with it. Don't worry if you aren't a pro knitter, this project is completely doable for new knitters. So I'm working with 4 different colors for my blanket, with navy as my main color, but this is a really flexible pattern. Feel free to use a single color, 2 colors, 3 colors, however many you want. Now you'll also need a 10mm knitting needle or a US 15, and since the full width of the project must rest on the needles as you knit, you'll want circulars for this because you can get them that's long enough to hold the width of the blanket. Alright, this pattern uses the long tail cast on to cast on 100 stitches. So you'll need to guesstimate how long of a tail you need for 100 stitches. So what I usually do is wrap the yarn around the needle 10 times. Now that's about how much yarn you need for 10 stitches. And since we need 100 stitches, we'll fold it over 10 times. Okay, then place the yarn over your needle and gather it in your hands like this. Steady the yarn on top with your finger and swing it down to grab the loop on your thumb. Swing it up to grab the loop on your finger, and release the thumb loop over the tip of the needle. Then just tighten it up and keep going. So each loop now is 1 stitch cast on. You'll want to keep going until you count 100 loops. So to keep things simple and easy for you to see, I'm just going to work a little swatch to show you the stitch pattern, and I'll switch over to the full-size blanket a bit later so you can see that too. So when you have all 100 stitches cast on, flip your work, grab that free needle, and we'll get started on the first row. Pull the tail you have remaining out of the way so you don't accidentally knit with it, and insert your needle through the first stitch from front to back. Then grab the yarn, wrap it, and pull it through. That's 1 knit stitch. And then just keep going. When you have a lot of stitches on your needles, the loops can kind of blend in with this really fuzzy yarn. So if you're having a little bit of trouble determining one loop from the next, I usually feel for the thicker band in the middle of the yarn and push that forward so I don't accidentally knit 2 stitches at once. This row is as easy as that. Knit every stitch. When you get to the end of the row, turn your work, grab that free needle again, and knit every stitch just like you did before. By the way, if you're new around here, the best way to follow along with these tutorials is to have the pattern in front of you too. You can view it for free on my website, or if you'd rather have a copy in hand to print or save for later, you can pick up the PDF from my shop. I'll have a link to both options in the description below, so you can do what works best for you. Now, since the texture of this yarn is so wonderful, we can stitch a really simple pattern for a project like this. So for this one, we're working in garter stitch, or just knitting every stitch of every row. But we need to keep track of the stripes as well. So each stripe in this pattern is made up of 10 rows. When you finish the 10th row, you'll add the new color, and this is how you would do that. Insert your needle through the first stitch, and grab your new color, fold it over, leaving about a 6-inch tail, or a little bit longer is fine. Then place that loop on your needle and pull it through to finish the stitch. From there, I usually hold the 2 ends at the back of the work as I work another stitch or 2 just to keep it nice and steady, and then just keep going with your new color. So I mentioned before, each stripe is made up of 10 rows, so you'll knit 10 rows of every color. If you want your blanket to look exactly like mine, then follow this stripe pattern with the colors you have. Now, don't worry about screenshotting this or anything like that. You can find the stripe pattern spelled out for you in the pattern. Again, the links for that is in the description below. So using the skills you've learned so far, continue knitting every row in your stripe pattern. You'll have a total of 15 stripes if you're following along with me, or if not, just keep knitting until it measures about 47 inches long. When you have the length worked up, you're ready for the bind off. Now we'll just work a simple knitting bind off here, so go ahead and knit the first 2 stitches. Then pass the first loop over the last. Then knit the next stitch. And pass the first loop over the last. Keep going like this until you have only 1 loop remaining on your needles. Real quick, I want to let you know about a returning item to my shop. Last year you all went crazy over my Yarn Love hoodies, and well, they're back. Plus, I added a couple new colors too. Check the description below for a link to order. And if you do decide to pick one up, thank you so much. That's such a big support and a help for me to keep doing what I'm doing. So when you have just 1 loop remaining, pull up and trim a tail and pull the tail through the loop to fasten it off. Now with stripes comes lots of little ends to weave in. No worries though, it actually goes much quicker than you'd expect with this yarn. So pick the side you want to deem as the right side, because they're just slightly different, and weave in the ends along the opposite side. The obvious tip here is to weave the tail in along the matching color so they don't show through. The not so obvious tip is to just loop the tail around your stitches. Because this yarn is so fuzzy, you don't have to be perfect, because imperfections don't show. That's kind of the good thing about this yarn. And it actually stays put really well because it's so fuzzy. It kind of sticks to itself. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today, and I hope you enjoyed this cozy project. Don't forget to check the description below for links to the pattern. If you have any questions at all, you'll probably find the answer there. Thank you so much for watching, for subscribing, liking, commenting. That stuff is a huge help and it supports this channel in tremendous ways. Happy knitting, and I'll see you in the next one.